Welcome to my Artemis series. I just cleaned up my room to Serenity before this. If you are watching the live now, make sure you just comment throughout the whole live. If you are catching the rerun here in the group or on YouTube, please make sure you comment throughout the whole live as well. Hello and replay do not count towards the required interactions. Just a little heads up, and I will respond to anything that is commented after the live as soon as possible. So this particular goddess is my patron goddess. This is actually the first deity that I have ever had any type of pull to. Growing up when we were studying Greek mythology, I was very, very much pulled to her to the point of obsession. So I started learning everything about her. It was really, really hard for me to pick only a couple things to talk about today, or we would have ended up with like a 5-hour college lecture type thing. Next month will be part 2. This will actually be a how to work with her with your own witchcraft or your spiritual path or just in general. So a lot of stuff that would have to do with worship, working with her, and festivals, stuff like that. I may touch a little bit on today, but I will definitely be going through it all next month. So keep an eye out for that next month. All right, so who is Artemis? Artemis is one of the 12 main Olympian gods within the Greek pantheon. She is considered a major goddess, and she is the daughter of Zeus and Leto, and she is the twin sister of the god Apollo. Apollo being representative of light, sun, and Artemis being a representative of dark moon. Her domains include she's the goddess of hunt, wilderness, the moon, virginity and autonomy for women, childbirth, young women, and the female spaces. This is one of the few goddesses that belong completely to herself. She stayed a virgin. She never really interacted with other males other than her brother. She actually, when she was quite young, went to her father and begged her father to make sure that she stayed a virgin, that she did not ever have to marry or anything like that. That's very important when it comes to her. Artemis is known as the goddess who belongs to herself. As I said before, Artemis does not ask for permission. She does not wait for approval. She does not soften herself to make others comfortable. She is the one of the few goddesses who demand and receive internal independence. No marriage, no romantic entanglements, no obligations that compromise her freedom. So she's very much if you need to get into your independent Lilith type goddess, she is another option for you from the Greek pantheon. Her independence isn't cold, it is clarity. She knows who she is, what she values, and she refuses to tolerate compromise. She has become the symbol of self-ownership, personal boundaries, living outside expectations, and honoring your own path. So definitely, if you need to do a lot of I need to find myself. I need to learn to set boundaries. I need to empower myself. I need to be independent. I need to grow as a woman. And this is definitely she's a girl's girl type of goddess. When I was going through my divorce, I actually was sitting on my back porch, which I happened to have her outside altar on my back porch in my old apartment, and it faced the woods. I just happened to have some candles lit up, and I was really kind of just like, I've been married for 20 years. My life is falling apart. Who am I as a woman? I kid you not, a deer came walking right up to my screaming porch and lay down in front of me. And I said, of course, you are my matriarch spirit. You are my goddess. I need to lean on you. And she definitely helped me to become the woman that you see today. Artemis reminds us that autonomy is sacred. Fierce, uncompromising, and absolutely done with nonsense. Like, she is your I am not dealing with your crap goddess. Artemis is gentle with the vulnerability, but also she is very ruthless with anyone who harms what she protects. She confronts those that are in danger, but being the goddess of the hunt, she will also comfort the wounded fawn, because you're not supposed to hunt fawns, and punish the arrogant hunter. So if you are definitely in a situation where you are feeling like you are the one that's the fawn, she's also somebody to help protect you. With that being said, she embodies precision, justice, integrity, and wild, untamed strength. Let me take a moment here to look at the comments. Yes, this is definitely a very interesting goddess, Wisteria. Hello, Cheyenne. It's good to see you. Her bow and arrows aren't just weapons. They are symbols of intentions. When she acts with a purpose. No hesitation, no apology. Like, she sets her sights and she will take her silver bow and arrow as something to point that she has the silver arrow. Her brother has the golden arrow. They are both archers. Like, that is their main thing. Her fierceness isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's the courage to defend what matters. It's the courage to stand up for what you believe in and to fight for it. She is the protector of the weak and vulnerable. Despite her sharp edges, Artemis is deeply nurturing, and she protects young girls, mothers in childbirth, newborn animals, travelers, and anyone that stands on the threshold of something new or in a transition. She understands those moments when we're in between who we were and who we are becoming. Yes, Holly, she is very, very, very much the strong yet soft type of goddess. She protects and extends to the forest, wild animals, and sacred groves. She is the wild herself, and she defends it fiercely. So if you're having a lot of like environmental issues, maybe they are trying to build in areas that are protected, this is a goddess that you would call upon. They are actually trying to go in Alaska and drill in a protected area for the wilderness for oil, and I actually have been doing a devotional to Artemis every day to protect that. All right, so this is why Artemis still matters today. Artemis isn't just a mythical figure, she is an archetype. She speaks to women reclaiming their independence, people setting boundaries for the first time, the witch learning to trust her instincts, so she's very beginner friendly as well. The soul stepping into power, anyone who refuses to be tamed. When you were little, you used to think you were Artemis. I used to, when we used to like play pretend and stuff like that, I definitely used to pretend that I was Artemis. I grew up, I'm gonna age myself, during the time of Hercules, the TV show, and Xena. And it always made me upset that they villainized the gods so much, because I was definitely pro Artemis. Because, like, as soon as I started learning Greek mythology, I learned everything I could about her. And then let me go ahead and I am going to pull this up so that we can see the twins, Artemis and Apollo. The symbols of Artemis are the bow and arrow, the deer, and the moon. The bow represents independence, protection, justice, and sharp edge intentions. So when you really have those intentions that really need to go with a bang or give a hard punch, she is a good goddess deity to go to help with this type of working. She doesn't miss. Her arrow, as I said before, will cut straight through confusion and fear. So she can definitely help you in your like finding yourself and your independence and finding your way. In art and culture, Artemis is always seen pretty much with the bow and arrow. In Greek pottery, it shows her mid-stride, bow drawn, and arrow knocked. Roman statues depict her as Diana with her quiver at her hip. Modern heroines echo her archetypes. So a lot of your, like the Black Widow when she uses archery, a lot of your heroes, Wonder Woman, Diana, those are all modern day personifications of Artemis. In witchcraft, the bow symbolizes intention setting and focus spell work. The deer represents wilderness, purity, and sacred protection. This is the untouched wilderness, so your untouched soul. Intuition, your inner innocence, so your inner child. And the wilderness as a whole. She is definitely a nature goddess, so she will be with you in the woods. And then I will go on more in next months on how to connect with her. Her golden stag and her herd, of does are extensions of her spirit. So whenever you see a lot of deer, which I will see them all the time, whenever I need a sign, I will see a deer walking down the middle of the road in the city. Her strength doesn't roar. I cannot talk. Roar. Sometimes it steps lightly. So she's very quiet footed because she is a huntress. So she may not be one of those ones that are in your face, but she is still there. Holly says, I love. Yes, that she's a nature goddess. Absolutely. Yep. She is one of our nature goddesses. Definitely when it comes to like the woods and stuff like that. Yes. Wisteria next month is going to be all of the how to work with her, how to connect with her, how to tell that she is calling to you, setting up the altar to her, all that stuff. I really just wanted to do a her and witchcraft by itself, and then my final month we will actually be making a devotional bowl for her as well. Holly, I see a couple of deer the other night, and I'm in the middle of a city, never seen deer, and they were right in front of my house. She may be reaching out to you, helping you find like your independence, helping you find your inner strength to take on battles and stuff like that. I definitely would go into that. Atina says, I think we need to invoke her to protect my town because they're trying to make it bigger and ruin the orchards and the surrounding trees. Definitely set up an altar to her and tell her that this is what's going on and you need her to interfere, and suddenly getting permits and all that kind of stuff will happen. I have seen it here where they actually pulled permits and rezoned areas to protect the nature. So a lot of people know her as the moon goddess. So her as a moon goddess means cycle and feminine power. She is a goddess of cycles of growth and release, which kind of goes with her being the goddess of childbirth as well. Intuition and intention, nighttime protection, which is huge for women, especially nowadays. If you ever feel like you're scared, obviously have your pepper spray and all that. But kind of before you go out at night, blanket you with her energy and it can kind of help you. And always have your phone and everything else, of course. And then again, nighttime is definitely a time where we go into a lot of our transitional stuff because we'll be thinking about the day and start our paths or transition into something else. So that's also what the moon, which goes through transition, represents as well. Her as the moon goddess and art and culture. Roman art shows her as Diana with a crescent crown. Renaissance paintings bathe her in moonlight. Neo-pagan traditions link her to the maiden. Pop culture uses her moon imagery to invoke feminine strength. Alright, so I wanted to share 3 with you. The first 2, I did actually put the full myths in the event. They're quite long. So if you want to read the actual myths, you can read them there. The first one is going to be the birth of Artemis. When the world was still young, when the mountains were still learning their names, and the gods were carving their thrones from the bones of the old order, there walked a titaness of quiet radiance. Her name was Leto, daughter of Phoebe and Coeus. She carried the calm of the moonlit water in her hair and the depth of starlit skies in her eyes. Even the birds paused their songs when she spoke, and it was this gentle brilliance, I cannot talk, excuse me, brilliance that caught the attention of Zeus himself. But unlike many of his chaotic pursuits, as we know, Zeus was very much a ladies' man. This was different. Their love was slow, thoughtful, and rooted in shared wisdom. They walked together throughout sacred groves, speaking of poetry, music, and the mysteries that bind the cosmos. So she was kind of one of his favorite mistresses. Yet peace never lasts. In the shadow of Mount Olympus, for when Hera, the queen of the gods and Zeus's wife, guardian of marriage, learned that Leto carried Zeus's children, her fury cracked across the heavens like a storm. She unleashed the Python, a monstrous serpent with bronze scales and burning eyes to hunt her down across the world. And then came the cruelest decree of all. No land beneath the sky shall shelter Leto when her time comes to give birth. So as she wandered while in labor with twins across Sicily, where kind eyes turned away in fear, through Crete, where rulers bowed but dared not defy Hera, a crossroads where even the sun-blessed people trembled at the threat of divine wrath from the queen of the gods. Everywhere she went, doors closed in her face. Everywhere she ran, Python followed, corrupting the air, poisoning the water, a shadow that never tired in its pursuit of her. As she labored, her strength started to falter as she was carrying the twins, children of prophecy, and still no land offered sanctuary in fear of angering the queen of the gods. Until she remembered a place so small, so barren, so overlooked that perhaps Hera had overlooked it too. A floating island, a wandering rock, a nameless scrap of earth drifting in the Argarian Sea, Delos. When Leto reached this island and its shores, she called out with the last of her strength because she was suffering at this point, trying to find rest to give birth to these babies. And to her astonishment, this island answered. I am small, the island whispered, and I am poor, but I am not afraid. Let your children be born upon me, and let my existence finally mean something. And so, Leto collapsed upon the rocky ground, the first solid soil that gave her refuge she'd known in 9 months. Delos, moved by her suffering, summoned the little magic it possessed, a spring of fresh water, a bed of soft moss, and a single palm tree, as you can see with her there, rising like a guardian over the laboring Titaness. But Hera's malice stretched even there. She forbade the goddess of childbirth from attending Leto. And so the Titaness labored for 9 days and 9 nights on her own. Her cries carried on the wind, her strength nearly gone. At last, the other goddesses intervened. They bribed the goddess of childbirth with a necklace of gold and amber so radiant it rivaled the dawn. And in secret, the goddess slipped to Delos. The moment she arrived, everything changed. Leto's first child came swiftly, a daughter with silver hair and moonlight eyes, Artemis, calm, wise, ancient in spirit, even as a newborn. But the labor was not over. Leto clung to the sacred palm tree, pains returning with brutal force. And in that moment that would echo through eternity, the newborn Artemis understood. She stepped forward, because she's a goddess, minutes old yet divine, and acted as a midwife to her own twin brother. And when Apollo entered the world, light erupted across Delos, golden flowers burst from stone. The island glowed with divine fire, since he's the god of fire. The air shimmered with music no mortal could hear or fully understand. This is all coming from him. Zeus, moved by the island's courage, anchored Delos to the sea ground with chains of stone, transforming it into one of the most sacred places in Greece. Artemis became the protector of women, creatures, and honoring the suffering mother, which also led her to become the goddess of childbirth and women in labor. Apollo became the god of music, prophecy, and healing, and when he came of age, he hunted down Python in its lair on Delphi and ended the terror that had haunted Leto. And I will actually have that as one of his myths. After this 3-part series, I'm going to do his 3-part series. So the story of the birth reminds us that even the smallest place can become sacred when it chooses compassion over fear, that twins can be bound by destiny deeper than blood, and that from suffering, sometimes the brightest gods are born. And that is the birth of Apollo and Artemis. And I love how she became a midwife at just hours old. Yep. Yep, he is definitely all that fire, that light, because he can also be linked with the sun, the music that all came from him. If it wasn't for his sister helping her mother birth him, he may not have ever come. He sometimes shadows her, but she's just as an important goddess. Tina, we can still see you. Okay, perfect. All right, so this next myth is one of my favorite. I'm not going deep into it, but this is how the Greeks explained Orion's belt. Alright, so here's the myth of Orion. In the deep wilds of ancient Greece, where moonlight drips through the pines branches and the air smells of cedar and night, Artemis, goddess of the hunt, moved like a silver shadow. She was the wolf's howl, the arrow's whisper, the heartbeat of the wilderness itself. But one day, she wasn't alone. From between the trees stepped Orion, the mighty hunter, broad-shouldered, fierce, and yet carrying a strange gentleness in his stride. When Artemis drew her bow and nocked her arrow, Orion smiled because she was going to shoot him. When she first met him, she was having none of it because he was a male, so she was going to shoot him. Because he recognized something in her eyes, something wild, something free, something that matched his own spirit, he reached out to her in peace. Their meeting was not fate's accident, it was the collision of two forces born for the hunt. From that day forward, Artemis and Orion roamed the forest together. They raced through the summer fields, challenged each other into archery contests beneath the blazing sun, and then when night fell, they lay beneath the moon, her moon, trading stories of beasts conquered and paths yet left unexplored. This was one of her best friends. Although Artemis was sworn to chastity, their bond was something deeper than romance. It was kinship, it was respect, the rare companionship between two beings who understood the language of the wild better than the language of mortals. So he was one of the rare men in ancient Greece that actually respected the fact that she was a virgin. She would never be anything but a virgin, and he 100% went into her friend zone happily, and they were best friends. Orion often thanked the gods and the fates for crossing his path with hers, for giving him a friend who could match his stride, his skill, and his spirit. But not everyone saw their friendship as harmless. Guess who didn't? Apollo did not see as harmless. Her twin brother, the golden twin of Artemis, watched their growing closeness with suspicion. Fear, perhaps. Jealousy, most definitely, because somebody was stealing his sister from him. He worried Orion would tempt Artemis away from her vows, so he always claimed he was doing this to protect her vows of chastity. And though Orion had confided in Apollo himself, admitting he loved men, not Artemis, so he was not interested in women. Apollo's mind was already clouded with dread, jealousy, and protectiveness. So he began to plot. Apollo, the god of light, carried a shadow in his heart that day. He summoned a monstrous scorpion, a creature armored with obsidian plates, venom burning like molten stones, and sent it after Orion. The hunter fought bravely, but this was no ordinary beast. His arrow shattered against the shell. His sword glanced off the armor. Step by step, the scorpion drove him back into the sea. So he ended up having to go into the water. As Orion struggled against the waves, Apollo seized the moment because he's a jerk. He rushed to Artemis, his sister, breathless with false urgency, spinning a tale of horror that a mortal named Candron had violated one of her beloved priestess, because when you became a priestess to Artemis, you also took a vow of chastity. So if something that happened where a man helped himself to one of these women, they got the full wrath of Artemis. And Artemis, the fierce protector of young women, the avenger of the vulnerable, rose instantly, fury blazing in her silver eyes. "Where is he?" she demanded. Apollo pointed towards the sea, towards a tiny distant figure barely visible against the water. "There," he said. "That is the man who defiled your priestess." Artemis did not hesitate, because why would she have to question her brother? She never questioned him. She did not look twice, because this was her twin brother. He raised her bow, knocked an arrow, and her arrow flew. Moonlight flashed along its shaft as it cut through the air, straight and true as all her arrows were. And when it struck, the sea went still. The scorpion sank. The waves quiet, and Orion, her friend, her equal, the one soul who matched her stride, disappeared beneath the water. Only then did the truth reach her. Only then did she understand what Apollo had done. Some say Artemis wept. Some say she placed Orion among the stars so that she would never lose sight of him again. Some say her grief still echoes in the night sky, where the hunter and the scorpion chase each other across it for eternity. But all agree to this: the bond between Artemis and Orion was powerful enough to shake even the gods. And the tragedy of their parting reminds us that even divine hearts can break, even gods can be deceived, even gods can be devastated. There is another story as well that isn't quite as dramatic as this. It's when he's out swimming, Apollo challenges her to a target match, knowing that his sister won't miss the target, and he tricks her into hitting the target anyway. Artemis does get revenge, and that will actually be in the story. All right, and now for The third myth, and this one kind of shows Artemis and her cruelty. This is the myth of Actaeon. In the shallow valleys beneath a mountain, where the air hangs thick with pine and ancient secrets, a young hunter named Actaeon roamed with pride. He was skilled, fearless, and followed by a loyal pack of hounds whose devotion was legendary. Together they moved through the Vale of Gracopenia. Sorry, some of the Greek words I cannot say. Like a single creature, swift, relentless, and unstoppable. After a long day's hunt, Actaeon felt the weight of exhaustion settle into his bones. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in gold and crimson. And there, tucked between the rocks and whispering trees, he found a quiet pool. Cool, inviting, and shimmering like a mirror to another world. He approached it, the ease of a man who believed the forest belonged to him, ego, but the forest did not belong to him. It belonged to Artemis. For on that very day, the goddess of the hunt, wild, sovereign, untouchable, had chosen this sacred pool as her place of rest. Surrounded by her attendants, her nymphs, she stepped into the water, moonlight glimmering off her skin, her bow set aside. Her guard was completely lowered for the briefest of moments. And despite their frantic attempts to shield her from his eyes, Actaeon saw her. Not the goddess, not the untamed force she was, but a woman bathing in the wild with nothing on. In that instant, the world held its breath, for no man has ever seen her in this state of undress. Artemis turned around, obviously hinted and told by her attendants. Her eyes were as sharp as silver braids, her power rising like a storm. She did not scream, she did not flee. She simply lifted her hand, and the water obeyed. The pool shimmered, the air cracked, and Actaeon felt his body twist, reshape, and dissolve into something other. A stag. Tall, trembling, crowned with antlers he did not understand. He caught a sight of himself in the water, a creature he had once hunted now. The panic surged through him. Instinct took over, and he ran. Branches tore at his flanks. His hooves struck the earth in a frantic rhythm. And behind him came the sound he knew better than any other. His hounds, but they did not know it was him. To him, he was prey, a manifestation of a magnificent stag. Fleeing through the forest, their master's scent was gone, replaced by the musk of fear and wildness. They chased him with the same loyalty, the same devotion, but turned now into a deadly purpose. He ran until his strength failed, until his breath came in ragged gasps, until his lungs burned, and his heart felt like it was going to burst, until the forest blurred into streaks of green and shadow. And when he could run no more, they caught him. Thus ended Actaeon, not by Artemis's arrow, but by the very creatures who had once adored him. A hunter undone by a moment he never meant to witness. A mortal who crossed the boundary between the sacred and the profound. And Artemis, she returned to her bow, to her moonlit forest, to the wild places where no mortal gaze were meant to follow. To her realm, her sovereignty is absolute, and the price for trespassing is written in blood and shadows. He also, in some myths, he tried to turn, hoping that his hounds would see his eyes and recognize their master, but he did not, and they did not. Hello, Ellen, how are you? It's Holly. It is very interesting. Jealousy is definitely one heck of a thing when it comes to especially Apollo and Artemis. Alright, so I'm just go over her festivals just a little bit because I will revisit them next month. Worship and festivals. Artemis was worshipped across Greece in many forms. She had a cult center in Delos. Festivals included rites of passage for young women, celebrations of childbirth, and rituals honoring her as a huntress and protectors. And like I said, more we'll definitely dig into that more closely next month. Now, I did want to address that when it comes to the Greek and Roman culture, Artemis is one of those goddesses that kind of keeps her same duties, but her name changes, unlike her brother, who is Apollo to both Greek and Roman. So this is Artemis and Diana. Stand as two of the most enduring goddesses in ancient mythology. Though born from different cultures, Artemis in Greece and Diana in Rome, as I said, their identities eventually intertwine, creating a powerful shared legacy rooted in wilderness, moonlight sovereignty, and feminine autonomy. Twin goddesses across cultures. Artemis began as the Greek goddess of the hunt, wild animals, and protection, and then also of childbirth, young women, and transitions. When the Romans adopted her, she evolved into Diana, the goddess who carried many of the same qualities: independence, mastery of the natural world, and guardianship over life cycles. Both were honored in temples, sacred groves, and ritual spaces across the ancient world. Over time, Diana's mythology expanded beyond the forest, beyond being just a huntress, to a nocturnal leader. Medieval stories describe her as a moonlit leader of women who traveled with her at night, a blend of dream, spirit, and folklore. These tales echoed her ancient roles as the goddess of transition who moved between two worlds, guided transformation, and presided over thresholds. During the Middle Ages, church authorities claimed that women who believed they traveled with Diana were being deceived, of course. Texts attempted to suppress these beliefs, calling such journeys illusions. Ironically, these condemnations helped preserve Diana's name in religious writings, ensuring her mythology survived even in times that it was refrained and seemed as dangerous to think this way. Diana's connection to the moon, transformation, and soul flight traces back to deep traditions. Artemis shared similar traits: protector, childbirth, guardian of young creatures, and a fiercely independent virgin goddess. Their symbols, especially the bow and arrow, reinforced their roles as a sovereign huntress tied to purity, cycles, and the natural world. Before merging with Artemis, Diana was already worshipped in pre-Rome Italy as a woodland deity associated with springs, groves, and wild places. She ruled over boundaries, both physical and spiritual, and was honored with offerings and forest shrines. Her independence and authority made her a powerful figure long before Roman mythology absorbed her. So the Romans took a Italian goddess, took a Greek goddess, and made her into a hybrid of both. All right, so this is them with fertility, childbirth, and sacred autonomy. Artemis, with her iconic multi-breasted imagery, symbolized abundance and cosmic order. Diana inherited the associations, becoming a guardian of women, childbirth, and life transitions. Their autonomy and strength made them revered, and later in medieval times feared or misunderstood. In medieval folklore, Diana appeared alongside figures like Holda, feminine spirits who led nocturnal progressions, blessed households, or oversaw seasonal rites. These stories preserved echoes of older goddess traditions, even as they tried to suppress her and make her either since superstition or a demonic influence. So yes, even the goddess Artemis and Diana, they tried to demonize. Despite attempts to suppress her, Diana continued to appear in medieval art and writing. Sometimes she was clearly depicted, other times she appeared only as a shadowy figure. Her imagery, moonlight, forest, hunting attire, remained consistent, keeping her identity alive across centuries. Echoes of ancient rituals and witchcraft accounts. Early witchcraft confessions often described night journeys, blessings, and encounters with female spirit leaders. Scholars believe these stories contain remnants of old rituals connected to Artemis and Diana. Traditions of transformation, sovereignty, and seasonal renewal that survive beneath everything else. So definitely, it seems like when Christianity was taking over, they were trying to suppress her, and she said, heck no, I will not be suppressed, which is very true to herself. Yes, Erica, not even goddesses were excluded from bullying or gossip. Hello, Ellen. I don't know if I said hello to you. Yep. I think female goddesses got hit even harder, especially ones like Artemis and Diana, who are very much female empowerment. So I did want to point out that I got my information from a couple of websites, which I will have cited with the myths that I grabbed, but also these two books. And then this is a little setup of my altar. I will go more in depth next week, but I have a moon, or not next week, next month, a moon candle and her little statue as well. So I just wanted to thank you all for joining me on this deep dive of Artemis, her myths, her symbols, her stories, and her enduring presence. She is a goddess who embodies independence, wildness, willfulness, and the sacred power of nature. What's your favorite Artemis myth or interpretation? I'll wait a second and let you guys answer. I definitely would love anybody that actually works with her to share your thoughts, your experience, or your questions in the comments. So even if you don't work with her, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them here. You can comment on the YouTube video once that's up as well. So join me next time for part 2, where we'll explore how to work with Artemis in a modern practice. Until next time, stay wild, stay sovereign, and stay magical. Erica, absolutely. She is very interesting. She is by far my favorite. This is, as I said before, her temple. It's really kind of hard to see it the way it printed out. And it no longer exists, so this is just what they think. But if you can see on the top, it's got the stags on it. I think there is some ruin left of it. Yes, Holly, I love the fact when she turned a peeping Tom, because we'll call him what he is. He was a peeping Tom. His ego got a little too big for himself, into a deer. Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. I will see you next month. Bye.